Pernah tak anda sebagai ibu bapa memikirkan perasaan anak-anak? Mereka juga mangsa ketagihan dadah. Hentikan, bantu mereka sebelum terlambat. Dapatkan rawatan secara sukarela di pusat pemulihan kerajaan ataupun swasta.
Salam keluarga Malaysia, hello and good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Syahida Arifin and you're watching News at 10. In our top stories tonight, Blueprint Committee to deal with the homeless to be created. Kuak targets RM200 billion gross fund size by 2025. A blueprint and committee to set direction of homeless issue will be established as there are no specific source of authority and legislation for the operation and handling of the group in the country. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Semasa said the matter was agreed upon at the first meeting of the Special Cabinet Committee for Protecting Vulnerable Groups chaired by him. The government will undertake a new approach of strategic cooperation by expertise and experience sharing involving NGOs. Apart from that, the meeting also agreed with the proposal of the Women, Family and Community Development Ministry, KPWKM, to set up the registration of existing care centres and enforcement on care centres and review the Care Centres Act 1983 as well as Care Centres Regulations 1994. The Private Age Healthcare Facilities and Services Act 2018 will be enforced in preparation for the projection of Malaysia in achieving the Ageing Nation status by 2030, as well as supporting the development of the ageing healthcare industry at private care centres. Special Cabinet Committee for Protecting Vulnerable Groups is a special platform to study various issues related to vulnerable groups' care centres in the country. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri also called on the federal and state governments to jointly review land status to facilitate care centres and tahfiz to obtain operation approval. The Premier said integrated cooperation is vital to ensure the success of Keluarga Malaysia agenda in protecting the well-being of rakyat, especially those listed under the definition of vulnerable groups. He added the government, through the National Tahfiz Education Policy, DPTN, will empower tahfiz education and standardization of tahfiz management nationwide through 5 main thrusts, namely legislation, tahfiz model, curriculum meeting mainstream education, integrity in governance and streamlining of tahfiz recognition. Since DPTN introduction in 2016, the total number of tahfiz registered with the government has increased from 571 to 1,208 this year. The Ministry of Housing and Local Government (KPKT) is in the midst of reviewing the Solid Waste and Public Cleansing Management Act (SWMA 2007) or Act 672 to strengthen the elements of circular economy and at the same time tackling food wastage issue. Its Minister Datuk Seri Riza American said only 7 states and territories had adopted Act 672. Elaborating further, he said its implementation is restricted to households and industries, the commercial sector, the construction sector, and institutions only in the states that have adopted the Act. He added the Act does not cover all food manufacturers or the food industry as a whole.
Sebagai permulaan, Kementerian dengan kerjasama Kementerian Alam Sekitar Jepun sedang membangun garis panduan pengurusan sisa makanan. Dengan kerjasama ini, Kementerian akan dapat mengambil the best practices dalam memastikan pewujudnya perundungan khusus dan menyokong pengurusan sisa makanan yang lestari.
He also said this in line with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to reduce half of the global food waste per capita by 2030. Any activity that could affect tasik chini in Pahang, including new approval for sand and mineral mining, has been stopped. Energy and Natural Resources Minister Datuk Seri Taqiyuddin Hassan said the strict directive was issued to ensure that tasik chini could be conserved and restored to maintain its status as a biosphere reserve.
Strict instruction daripada kerajaan supaya tidak ada lagi kelulusan-kelulusan baru untuk mineral dan juga galian-galian yang ada di sekitar tasik chini itu. Jadi kita pelihara lah tasik chini ini. Jadi yang detailnya saya akan jawab besok lah dalam parlimen esok.
The minister told this to reporters after launching sports tournaments at Sekolah Kebangsaan Islah in Kota Baru today. According to UNESCO's first periodical review of the lake released recently, tasik chini no longer meets the criteria to be part of the World Networks of Biosphere Reserves, WNBR. However, UNESCO has given the Malaysian authorities until 30th September to inform the world body on how it plans to nurse tasik chini and its surrounding wetlands back to health. The plantation sector offers a wide range of job opportunities. However, the interest of youth participation in the sector is still low. According to Human Resources Minister Datuk Seri M. Saravanan, his ministry is currently looking at how to use Industry Revolution 4.0 to spur interest in the sector, as well as a medium to provide training to local youths.
Semua manusia melalui My Future telah memberi peluang untuk warga tempat dalam setahun. Tetapi setakat ni kita tak lihat minat daripada golongan belia. Walaupun kita lihat jika banding dengan seperti mana disebut yang berhormat, kita lihat dari segi perumahan, dari segi pendapatan lebih baik daripada sebelum ni, tetapi masih golongan belia kurang minat. Kementerian sedang mengkaji bagaimanakah kita menggunakan Industri Revolusi 4.0 untuk memberi latihan kemahiran kepada golongan belia yang boleh melibatkan dalam bidang.
He said this in response to question by Seri Gading MP Dato Dr. Syahrudin Mat Saleh during Dewan Rakyat sitting today. Up until 29th July, a total 120,237 job seekers had received job placements through numerous initiatives implemented by KSM and Social Security Organisation or SOCSO. Coming up, Customs seized contraband cigarettes worth 9.45 million ringgit. The Ministry of Finance MOF is confident that the Retirement Fund Incorporated Corp, which launched the Teras 5 initiative today, can sustainably grow the size of its fund to a total gross fund of 200 billion ringgit by 2025. Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz said Corp also aims to increase the number of property assets to more than 30 from 17 and have more than 35 subsidiaries within the same period. He said Corp has thrived as a company group that has expanded its investment portfolio threefold from funds worth 41.9 billion ringgit in 2007 to around 159 billion ringgit today.
Hadirin yang saya hormati sekalian, melalui Teras 5, Kementerian Kewangan yakin Corp akan dapat mencapai sasarannya untuk mengembangkan saiz dana secara mampan dengan jumlah dana kasar sebanyak 200 bilion ringgit dan meningkatkan jumlah aset harta daripada 17 kepada lebih 30 serta lebih 35 subsidi. Target ini ataupun sasaran ini menjelang 2025 insyaAllah.
He said this at the launch of the Corp Transformation Plan in Kuala Lumpur today. Teras 5 is a part of a long-term policy plan to increase the size of the fund more effectively and remain sustainable. Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul said, as key players and investors, government-linked companies GLCs and government-linked investment companies GLICs are an important pillar of Malaysia's economic base and contribute approximately 445 billion ringgit or 25% of the Bursa Malaysia market and provide employment opportunities to more than 500,000 in keluarga Malaysia. Teras 5 involves the empowerment of 5 key enablers, namely structure, governance, human capital, process and digital. KUAP will also embark on a diversification strategy and aims to achieve 7% return by 2025 from the current 6%. Chief Executive Officer Nikam Lizan Muhammad said the fund would focus on private investment, namely private equity, infrastructure and real estate, going forward in realising the targets. Speaking after the launch of Teras 5, a long-term policy plan to increase the size of the fund, Nik Amlizan said going forward, KUAP are looking at 80% public investment and 20% private investment from the current composition of 90% to 10%.
What we see is that the return from the public markets have not been on the high trajectory from growth perspective compared to the private market. We are seeing double-digit growth return in the private market space.
She said this in a press conference after the Teras 5 launch, officiated by Finance Minister Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz in Kuala Lumpur today. Nik Amlizan said KUAP needs to be able to deep dive into particular investments for the entity to know the assets well, know its investments well, and know the risk-return profile well. Meanwhile, backed by a strong foundation of achieving about 6% returns in the past 10 years, she said Teras 5 will support the target of 7% returns while improving its services to pensioners. 9 performance audits worth 10.75 billion ringgit were carried out in 2021, involving programs, activities and projects undertaken by 8 ministries. Auditor General Datuk Seri Nik Azman Nik Abdul Majid said the implementation of all the federal government's programs, activities and projects were in accordance with the objectives. However, he said there are some weaknesses, such as output targets and set outcomes that were neither achieved nor can be evaluated. He explained that this is because quantitative targets, mechanisms and indicators are not set and related data is not maintained completely and updated.
Kita juga pembayaran tidak teratur melibatkan projek pusat kawalan trafik udara baru dan sistem berkaitan dengan Kuala Lumpur Flight Information Region sebanyak 4.88 juta dan juga pengurusan program pembasmian kemiskinan bandar sebanyak RM75,000 dan juga berlaku juga kehilangan dan kerugian wang awam sebanyak 2.8 juta melibatkan juga projek pusat kawalan trafik udara dan sistem berkaitan dengan Kuala Lumpur Flight Information Region.
Speaking to media after presenting the Auditor General's Report 2021 Series 1 in Parliament today, the Auditor General has put forward 33 recommendations to be considered for implementation by the audited federal ministries, departments and agencies. Meanwhile, the Auditor General's Report 2021 Series 1 also revealed that the managing of school constructions project was found to be inefficient and ineffective based on the scope and audit samples covering the construction of 19 new schools during the 2016-2021 period in Kuala Lumpur, Selangor, Melaka and Negeri Sembilan. This was due to weaknesses at the planning, pre-construction and implementation stages of the projects by the Education Ministry MOE, consultants and contractors. It noted that there was also poor coordination with the state governments, local authorities and utility companies, beside the issues of preparedness of the project sites, which contributed to the delay in implementing the projects. This situation made the project's objectives of accommodating the surplus of students through the building of new schools and having one-session schools difficult to achieve. To overcome the weaknesses raised and to ensure the mistakes are not repeated in the future, the Auditor General has proposed that the MOE conduct engagement sessions with all the parties involved at the federal and state levels and also to finalise the project sites before the projects are tabled for approval by the Economic Planning Unit UPE to reduce the risk of delays in implementing the projects. The Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee PAC will begin its probe into the Kuala Lumpur City Hall's DBKL flood mitigation measures owing to shortcomings in preventing floods. Its chairman Wong Kah-Wo in a press conference today said the PAC has agreed to call up the Federal Territories Ministry to begin proceedings involving the management of Kuala Lumpur flood mitigation projects worth RM329.3 million. He said the management of the flood mitigation in Kuala Lumpur will be a priority owing to the recent frequent flooding. The PAC will be calling Federal Territories Minister Datuk Seri Shaidan Kasim and the Ministry's Secretary General Datuk Seri Rosida Jaafar.
Pagi tadi PAC juga telah bersetuju untuk memulakan prosiding berhubung dengan pengurusan mitigasi banjir Kuala Lumpur bernilai RM329.33 juta dan kita akan memanggil Kementerian Wilayah Persekutuan bagi tujuan tersebut.
Also to be called up, he said, is Kuala Lumpur Mayor Datuk Seri Mahadi Cik Ngah. However, Wong said that a date has yet to be fixed for PAC to begin its probe. The DBKL flood mitigation measures are a 10-year plan covering 2010 to 2020. The Johor Customs Department raided a warehouse in Kulai on 23rd July and seized smuggled cigarettes worth a whopping RM9.45 million, including unpaid tax, the biggest seizure by Johor Customs this year. Johor Customs Director Sazali Muhammad said the raid carried out by the Johor Bahru Enforcement Unit at 2:30 p.m. found 8 million sticks of contraband cigarettes comprising regular white sticks and clove cigarettes hidden in boxes that were covered by canvas. Sazali said the cigarettes were believed to have been smuggled in from Indonesia via the sea route.
Kami rasa yang rokok-rokok tu datang daripada luar negara melalui pesisiran pantai. Sebab berdasarkan pada keadaan rokok tu, macam saya kata tadi kan, di dalam bungkusan kotak-kotak dan kita dapati bahawa ada kesan-kesan air lah, basah kan. Jadi kita yakinlah dia datang melalui laut lah.
Sazali added that the seized cigarettes alone were worth RM3.8 billion. The case will be investigated under Section 135, Subsection 1, Subsection D, Customs Act 1967. Meanwhile, in a separate case on 22nd July, the Sungai Pulai Enforcement Division of the Johor Customs confiscated 3,840 cans of beer at kilometre 2.7 Jalan Sultan Ismail along the Iskandar Coast Highway near Nusajaya. The confiscated beverage is estimated to be worth RM10,700, while unpaid duties amounted to RM37,300. Coming up in our foreign segment, first grain ship out of Ukraine cleared to sail to Lebanon. The parents of a 12-year-old UK boy today appealed to European judges to maintain his life support in another high-profile medical ethics case for Britain. Archie Battersby was due to have his life support at the Royal London Hospital ended at 11 a.m. local time. But his parents are seeking a last-ditch ruling from the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, to keep him alive. Archie's mother, Holly Dons, found her son unconscious at home in April with signs he had placed a ligature over his head, possibly after taking part in an online asphyxiation challenge. His parents want to take Archie abroad for treatment. UK courts ruled that ending life-preserving treatment for Archie was in his best interest, as doctors believe he is brainstem dead. He is currently being kept alive through a series of medical interventions, including ventilation and drug treatments. Archie had been due to have his life support ended on Monday afternoon after his parents failed in a domestic legal bid to halt the move. But the Court of Appeal granted them a hearing on Monday after the government urged judges to consider his parents' application to the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The UN Committee had asked for treatment to continue while it considered the case. A Russian and Ukrainian team today completed a high-stakes inspection of the first shipment of grain from Ukraine since the Kremlin's invasion 5 months ago helped spark a global food crisis. The checks aboard the Sierra Leone flag Razoni in Istanbul were being watched closely for signs of how well the first agreement signed by Moscow and Kiev can hold since Russia invaded its pro-Western neighbor. A deal brokered by Turkey and the United Nations last month lifted a Russian naval blockade of Ukraine's Black Sea cities and set terms for millions of tons of wheat and other grain to start flowing from Ukraine's field silos and ports. Ukraine exports roughly half of the sunflower oil used in the world market and is one of the world's main suppliers of grain. An almost complete halt to its exports helped push up global food prices and make imports prohibitively expensive in some of the poorest countries in the world. The Razoni is due to deliver more than 26,000 tons of maize to Lebanon, a crisis-wrecked country that imports more than 80% of its weight from Ukraine and Russia. The ship sailed through a specially designated corridor in the mine-infested waters of the Black Sea before reaching the northern edge of the Bosphorus Strait on Tuesday. A bill expanding healthcare coverage for veterans sickened by gases from military toxic burn pits passed in the US Senate on Tuesday night after unexpectedly getting held up by opposition from Republicans last week. The US military used burn pits to dispose of waste on foreign bases until the mid-2010s. Fumes of burning everything from rubber, chemical waste, ammunition and human feces have caused rare cancers and respiratory illnesses in veterans. The bill initially passed the 100-member Senate with the support of 34 Republicans and all 50 Democrats, but got held up by a technical error the House swiftly corrected. The Senate's final approval last week was expected to be a routine vote, but after Democrats announced a deal within their caucus on an unrelated climate and tax bill that would not require bipartisan support, a group of Republican senators abruptly changed their positions and voted against the corrected bill. Many saw the Republican senators' move, which took place just hours after the Democrats' announcement, as retribution for continuing negotiations on the climate and tax bill that most in Congress thought were dead. The bill now moved to Biden's desk for final signing into law.
Mr. Leahy.
Coming up in sports, Malaysia toppled India to win badminton team gold. Malaysia got back on the gold trail in stunning fashion on Day 5 of the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. The national badminton squad produced a spectacular performance to back the mixed team gold medal after defeating defending champions India 3-1 in the final, thus avenging their 3-1 loss to the same opponents at the 2018 edition in Gold Coast, Australia. Played at an almost packed National Exhibition Centre Hall 5, it was Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games men's doubles bronze medalist Aaron Shah Sohuyik who got the ball rolling for Malaysia as they saw off India's top men's doubles pair, Sadwik Sairaj Rankireddy, Chirag Shetty 21-18, 21-15 in 48 minutes.
At this level for
Professional women's singles shuttler Go Jinwei then took the court to face India's 2019 world champion Pusarla Visindhu, and although the Malaysian lost 2022 17-21, she deserves a pat on the back for a fighting display. National men's top singles player Ng Zi Yong, sporting a new hairstyle, then had to survive a titanic 66-minute battle against former world number 1 Kindambi Srikanth before prevailing 21-19, 6-21, 21-16. Buoyed by Zi Yong's spirited display, national women's doubles pair Perlita and Amtina then played superbly to clinch the winning point by downing Theresa Jolie, Gayatri Gopichan Pulela 21-18, 21-17. Teenage national judo exponent Amir Daniel Abdul Majid celebrated his Commonwealth Games debut with a bronze medal at the Birmingham 2022 yesterday. The 18-year-old Penang Matriculation College student was handed the bronze medal in the 73-kilogram category at the Coventry Arena after his opponent, Dato Masu Katov of Cyprus, was disqualified for violating the rules of the competition.
Good things, but not in that fight. It is a real shame because
earlier in the round of 16, Amir Daniel defeated Samoa's William Titan 10-0. Then in the quarterfinals, the Malaysian lost to Australian Jake Burnstead after being handed a penalty. Amir Daniel, however, bounced back from the defeat to overcome Narciso Mato of Mozambique 10-0 in the repechage to set up the bronze medal bout against Matsukatov. National judo coach Mat Nashrik Mat Nasir hailed Amir Daniel's achievement and attributed the exponent's victory to sheer hard work. Amir Daniel had also won bronze in the SEA Games in Hanoi, Vietnam in May. National sprint sensation Muhammad Azim Muhammad Fahmi is grateful for breaking new barriers despite missing out on a medal on the men's 100 metres of the World Athletics Under-20 Championships in Cali, Colombia. Muhammad Azim, 18, said he was proud to have achieved his main target of qualifying for the 100 metres final, where he finished 5th and also smashing the national record with a time of 10.09 seconds in the heats. Muhammad Azim said the Cali outing was an invaluable experience which would motivate him to work harder for more success on the international stage.
First thing first, saya rasa sangat bersyukur dengan apabila saya dapat memecahkan rekod kebangsaan dengan catatan 10.09 dan juga pada hari kedua dia dalam semi-final dan juga final, saya juga rasa yang catatan yang saya lakukan adalah sangat baik. Tapi ini tidak bermakna yang saya perlu berpuas hati sekarang. InsyaAllah saya akan cuba yang lebih baik di masa akan datang.
In the 100-meter final at the Pascual Guerrero Olympic Stadium this morning, Malaysian time, Muhammad Azim clocked 10.14 second, failing to reproduce the form that saw him cracking Hairul Hafiz Jantan's national mark of 10.18 seconds in the heats yesterday. Botswana's Leslie Tebogo won the race in a World U20 record time of 9.91 seconds, followed by Bogi Nkrumah of Jamaica and South Africa's Benjamin Richardson in second and third places respectively. Muhammad Azim has also been entered for the 200-meter, which begins tomorrow morning. The national youth team kicked off their AFF Under-16 Championship on a positive note when they defeated Cambodia 3-0 in a Group C match at the Magu Waharjo Stadium in Sleman, Indonesia. Arami Wafi Zakimi scored the opening goal in the 6th minute, followed by Tum Sofat's own goal in the 58th minute. Faris Danish Asrol added Malaysia's third in the 78th minute. The team will play Myanmar, who edged Australia 3-2 on Friday. Malaysia, who won the tournament in 2013 and 2019, will wrap up their group stage campaign against Australia on 8 August. National Under-16 coach Osmera Omaro recently said he hoped his players will draw inspiration from their Under-19 counterparts who won the AFF Youth title last month. Indonesia has been a happy hunting ground for Malaysia teams, with victories in 2010 AFF Cup, 2011 SEA Games, and 2019 and 2022 AFF Under-19 Championship. Alright, so that concludes this evening's news at 10. In our top story, blueprint committee to deal with the homeless to be created. Join us again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Stay tuned to Saluran Berita RTM. Salam keluarga Malaysia and have a pleasant evening.